Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery, your resource for conversations around mental health and the mindsets necessary to master every area of your life. My name is Paul Klingen, and I'm a former Division I athlete that struggled with my mental health until I started yoga, which opened me up to other practices that gave me a balanced approach to my physical and mental health. The goal of this podcast is to inspire others to do the same, train and compete like an athlete, while also having the ability to slow down and practice stillness. When you can do both, you find balance and evolve into a greater version of yourself. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast. Paul Klingen here, and hope you guys all remembered to turn your clocks forward yesterday. It is spring forward, so if you didn't do that, you might want to do that now. You probably got away with it if you work in Seattle because you don't have to go into work because everything is shut down. Seattle is almost on lockdown. It is like a movie right now. But at the same time, I think everyone's staying safe. Everyone's staying smart. Wash your hands. Make sure you're leaving that space for Jesus or whatever moniker you want to use to make sure you're giving people space. And just be smart, be safe. Hope you guys are all doing well. If you're in the Seattle area, if you're all over the world, always wash your hands. Always be smart. Always be safe. And always eat healthy. I think that's a really big one, too. Take care of your body. It'll take care of you. And we'll get into that today with today's guest, Rajiv, the founder and owner of Embrace Change. But before I do, I just want to direct you to downdogathletics.com for a lot of different blogs, a lot of different podcasts I've been uploading. And then if you haven't yet, grab my 28-day plan. That's updated. I'm calling it the 2.0 version. But really what I did is I included a bunch more yoga videos with audio included so that you can follow along. And then all the training programs are broken out so that you can do 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and then pair it with your yoga or whatever training modality that you're using. But what's updated and really cool about it is really customizable, and it allows you to select and drop down a bunch of different exercises depending on your skill level, depending on the equipment available. Really, there's no excuses for you to not get in what it is that you got to get in that day. And when you have a plan, you're able to go in and execute. You remove a lot of that stress. You remove a lot of that wasted time because you're like, boom, I'm doing this, boom, boom, boom. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about Big Bob over there on the bench taking up my space. I'll just go find something else because I'll be able to use that drop down. Really cool functionality. A lot of people have been really liking it. So if you haven't yet, head to downdogathletics.com and check out the 28-day plan. And like I said, I got my man Rajiv on the podcast today, and he's down in Portland, but we connected in Vancouver at the Seawees Half Marathon, which was now almost like a year ago. But I was able to connect with him in January, finally catching up to the podcast and editing some of them. But he's a health and wellness coach, plant-based nutrition chef, and educator. I actually first saw him at an event that Train Athletic Forum put on in Seattle, where he talked a lot about the plant-based diet, and 100% agree with so many things that he talks about and so many different things that we go over in this podcast. If we all just ate more plants, our bodies, our planet would love us so much more. And he goes into a lot more detail with that, so I don't want to steal a lot of the joy, but he's also a father, and he talks about the joys of that. But the thing that we connected on so much was just the different ways to think about masculinity and how society or how we grow up, we think, all right, this is what being a man is like. But we have a really good conversation. He's got such powerful perspective on what it is to really own being a man and how to show up for your loved ones, your kids, your wife, your family, and everyone else. And I'm really excited for this podcast. I'm excited to have it up, and I know you guys are going to get a lot from it. So without further ado, here we go. Rajiv, what's up, man? How's it going down in Portland?
It's going well, man. It's a beautiful day down here, so I'm happy to be on, man.
Yeah,
I got the sunlight coming in, so I feel like I'm a part of the life out there.
I was just in Palm Springs, and the sunshine is very underrated and very needed in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes,
so I'm glad you guys are getting some down there. I actually lived in Portland for a few years. We talked about this a little bit when we connected in Vancouver, but I think it's one of the last few spots in the country that people are maybe coming around to. Hopefully not, but it's a little less commercialized, a little bit quieter, a little bit slower, and I really like that.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think people are catching on a little bit, just a little bit. So it's starting to get a little crowded. There's a lot of buildings going up, but it still has a nice vibe and a nice feel.
Yeah. What are some of the things you like about the community? We'll get into being plant-based and what you do with Lululemon and everything, but I feel like it's conducive to the different values that you have with your coaching and with your brand as well.
Yeah, I feel like the Portland area is a little more progressive when it comes to health, fitness, and wellness. So, with the plant-based movement and plant-based eating and being vegan, there's actually a lot of restaurants and products that are very accommodating. I feel like people have more of an open mind, open heart to that lifestyle and the actual benefits to it. And then the fitness community, there's a lot of cool things going on. So a lot of entrepreneurs in Portland that are small businesses trying to create a community, create impact, and give people some valuable resources. So it's definitely a cool spot. I've lived here my whole entire life. People are always like, "Oh my God, that's so crazy," because there's all these people that are transplants now, and I'm like, to me, it's normal, but I feel like the city has evolved in that way where there is a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of growth, and it feels good.
Yeah, totally. Are there other cities that you've found or traveled to that are adopting the vegan or plant-based or small companies in certain areas that you're noticing?
LA,
Yeah,
LA,
that would make sense.
I think LA, and it's hard to decipher whether it's a trend or if they really care, but I feel like they care and supply and demand, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, if people want it, they're going to build it, right? So I think LA has gotten conscious about that, and even up in Seattle, I don't know if you would agree with that, but I think there are some people who are becoming a lot more conscious and then being more accommodating to that lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, I think even just on packaging, on menus, it's a lot more visible than even 5, 10 years ago it was. And so that's really nice to see. I've been having conversations with my friends just in how we're wanting to shift more and more towards plant-based. Like I definitely have meat, but I'm definitely much more aware of where it's coming from and how sustainable it was for, animals or for the processes. And, as I've gotten into nutrition coaching and read different books, like Mind Gut Connection, or what's the one I recently just finished? It was like How Not to Die, and so much of it
Yeah,
was around like,
that's
dude,
a
you
good
are
one.
you are consuming the diseases that the animals were consuming, and the stress, and you're absorbing all of that, and
Yeah,
it's really eye opening, and I think we're going to continue to go that way because I want to live longer, and
right,
I
right.
think whatever you feed grows, and you just adapt your palate to things that. I mean, there's a lot of things that are vegan that taste really good.
Right, right. And you're right. The adaptation is huge. That's what it's about. It's retraining the mind and the body from something that's been ingrained in us for so long. So change is hard in the beginning. It always is.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's rewarding. But many don't make it through that first process of adversity, if you will. So the adaptation part is huge. And I believe if you develop the mindset and the heart set around why, discovering your purpose, your reason why you're doing it, versus it being some fad that everyone has jumped on, it'll be easier to sustain it if you can
Yeah.
develop that mindset and that purpose first.
Yeah. So you're talking about really creating a why behind it. That's much more powerful than
For sure.
just so when you're working with coach or when you're coaching people, how do you help them find that? Because you mentioned there's that wall of adversity that I would say in a business, fitness, nutrition, there's so many things where people hit that and they're like, I'm good. I'm going to stop. How do you help people cross that bridge?
Um, I feel like we skipped a step, and I want to share this with because I am where I am now. I'm plant based, but there was a huge transition that had to happen for me.
I was
And
going to get there, so I'm glad you jumped in.
yeah, if you're okay, I think I'll just start there, just
Cool.
because to let people know that there was a huge transition. There's a huge adaptation phase. So I actually, before I got into health and wellness, I was in the culinary arts, and I worked as a cook and a chef in the restaurant industry for a number of years, about 10 years, and everything was protein centric, and that's what I call it because like protein was the center of every dish, right? Whether it's chicken, fish, beef, and even exotic proteins, you know what I mean? Octopus and alligator and all kinds of strange things. But I mean, we were cooking it, we were curating, creating it, and it was at the center of the focus. And I was literally known as like the meat man because I would like cook proteins to like perfection. And it was like a goal of mine to try to do that. And because I mean, that was what people wanted. They wanted to be appeased with these different proteins and the textures and the flavors. And so everything, and then even as a child, like I was literally like carbs and protein.
Yeah.
Like my parents would cook a chicken, I'd eat like half the chicken and some rice, and that was it. I was like, hold the veggies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like anything specifically. It was just what I knew and what tasted good, whatever. And then as an adult, my fitness journey started several years back, but about what was it, 2015? So 4 years ago, I got into bodybuilding, and it wasn't like the big, muscly, oily guys with the.
On stage in the thong.
I was on stage, but I wasn't in a thong.
Okay.
So I was. It was men's physique. So men's physique is about symmetry. It's about
Oh, right.
symmetry. It's about shape. It's about your shoulder to waist ratio. So you want that V taper.
Mm-hmm.
You want big lats, nice shoulder structure. You know, all the things. So I did that for 3 years, and I did well at it. And I I was coached, and I was literally eating like 300 grams of animal protein a day. So just to give the listeners an idea of what that is, that's
That's
about
so much.
six servings of animal protein at every single meal. Every single meal, like 6 meals, a big serving of 6 to 8 ounces of animal protein. And I'm eating beef, chicken, fish in certain times during the season, eggs, drinking whey protein, all these different things. And I did achieve a body, a physique that was notable and memorable, and I had some success in men's physique, and I won a handful of shows. But at the same time, a lot of the focus in nutrition is of aesthetics. It's about aesthetics. It's about how you want to look. It's
Yeah.
about these short-term goals, like, hey, we have a wedding coming up. The summer's coming up. I need to fit in these pants in a few weeks, and I was caught up in that. And I even had a nutrition certificate when I first started getting into coaching. I got a nutrition certificate through Precision Nutrition, and a lot of the literature was saying, this was it. You need protein, especially if you're trying to build muscle mass, and you're in a caloric surplus. You need carbohydrates and protein. And then if you're trying to cut down and you're trying to sustain all your lean muscle tissue, you need a certain amount of protein. Now, all these things are true. The bioavailability of the animal protein is undeniable. It's true. With the amino acid profiles, the bioavailability that we use, that's true. But what people weren't telling us was all the other factors that could potentially be very harmful to us that come with over consuming these animal products, right? So it was the 2017, it was about the end of the summer, and I was competing in my last season of bodybuilding. I kind of started having a change of heart, and I realized that the sport was a little too singular for me. The community was good, but there wasn't really anything that was drawing me in. I didn't feel like there was a lot of growth for my message, my movement, for the people that I was serving. So I said, you know what? After this season, I'm going to be done. I'm going to transition into something else. A friend of mine was doing triathlon at the time,
Oh
and
man.
what's that?
No, I said, oh man, you went the other way into the
And
endurance.
it's because I started to shift in my mind and my heart, and I was just like, you know what, like there's not a lot of growth in this for me. Like at the next level, a lot of guys were using performance enhancing drugs, so it would be tough to transition, naturally into that next level without taking years and years and years of continuing to lift and stress your body in this way, to build that lean muscle tissue. So what happened during this transition was, my wife and I actually watched a documentary. We watched a documentary called What the Health. And it literally was very eye-opening to a lot of the things, a lot of the issues. And What the Health touched on a lot of things environmentally, ethically with the agriculture practices, animal cruelty, and then also the correlation between chronic and metabolic disease and the overconsumption of animal product. And it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. So again, I'm in this vulnerable space of transition, right? So I'm like, all right, like I'm not really into bodybuilding anymore. I feel like I need to grow and challenge myself differently. And then I kind of get this information, and it doesn't align with my core values. I'm about honesty and truth and
Hmm.
loyalty. And so my values are like, how would they lie to, first and foremost, the American people, but the world? Like, how
Yeah.
are they can big industries and these practices and these doctors, how can they lie to us? And we have this epidemic of sickness and disease in our country. And I'm like, I just start connecting the dots. So I started doing a lot more research. I started practicing differently. What I did was I just cut back. on animal protein. So I went from like 300 grams to like 100 grams a day. So that's basically like 2 servings versus 6. And I did that for a few months. But during this adaptation phase, my mind and my heart started to change about my reasoning. And then I got away from, I'm not eating just to look a certain way. I'm eating for longevity, for sustainability, for a lifetime of health and fulfillment and happiness. So that all these things started to transition during this period, and that's how I landed on whole food plant-based nutrition and veganism.
Yeah. And so now, is that what you're sharing with clients and specifically veganism, or are you coaching them through how to make that transition? Is there kind of a blend between that?
Yes, there is. That's a great question. I am not a mean vegan, like so. Straight up, I do believe in a lot of the things, but I do believe there's a way to portray your message and to not offend or shame people for what they're currently doing, because I don't think that's a positive way to affect change.
Yeah.
To shame people for what they're currently doing when a lot of people just don't know any better. So I am big on transition. So and having grace and saying, hey, don't go all in at once, or just not encouraging my clients to go all in at once, but let's slowly transition, similar to what I did, and allow you to feel the benefits, adopt the lifestyle through healthy habits and practice. And then eventually, hopefully, we can make the switch. And I tell people, I don't think you have to be 100% vegan to benefit from the power of plants. And I think everyone's doing their part if they cut back at the very least, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it brings up a really good point just around the chase of aesthetics and at what cost. Is it how you feel, right? You get up on that stage, you might not have the best biofeedback. You might be
Right.
a little bit grumpy. And that's what people don't realize is the magazine that they're seeing, they're like, oh, I want that. But then their metabolism's like, hey, I just want you to reproduce and be at equilibrium. But then there's also the nutritional aspects and components too of what you're actually getting in micronutrient dense foods like
Yes.
fruits and vegetables. And so I think that's something that is just a really good message to preach of like, hey, don't chase these things at the expense of how you feel, but
Right.
like take into consideration how you feel, the environment, the animals, and everything else. It's much more feeling based and empathetic, maybe.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I feel as humans we're selfish, right? Naturally, we're selfish, and most I find this very often that if people they can't see the bigger picture because they can't see outside of themselves. They can't see outside of their own lens because at first people want to fix themselves. And a lot of people can't even fix themselves. So if they can't fix themselves, how can we expect them to care about the world?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How can we expect them to care about the life of an animal if they can't even care for themselves?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like first we got to get to the heart. We got to get to the center of, hey, I can fix myself. I can feel better. I can be renewed. I can be restored. And then maybe we can get people to buy into the bigger picture and see that this is an epidemic. There's people around you that are sick. Our, climate change, global warming is a real thing. It's affecting many, many people, our whole world. It's affecting the longevity, the health of our earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we gotta, and it's sad to say, but it's like we got to get to the hearts of the people first and allow them to see change and experience change before we can expect them to care about the world, because not everyone's that compassionate. It's
Right.
just life.
Yeah. So do you think that that's a conversation to be had with a younger generation, or is that something that you're still going to preach to people that of the generation that you're in and hope to impact the people that are making decisions now? Or, you got a daughter, so it's all right, I'm going to do my best job as a father and give her the tools and have people grow up in this environment of
Yeah,
a completely different value system.
right. That's a great point. And I think it first starts with educating adults, because
Mhm.
adults have the ability to take that and bring it into their home.
Yeah.
Right. But I do think it's awesome because the younger generation now, I mean, there's been like climate change strikes, and like kids are walking out on certain days to go support, but it's like healthy protest, and they're learning what it is, what are some of the environmental factors that affect it. And I feel like they're more conscientious of what's going on. We had no idea when we were kids. I think you and I are similar in age. Uh,
Cinnamon toast crunch every morning, man.
Right. Like we weren't thinking about, we knew recycle, reduce, reuse, but like we weren't really thinking about, how our carbon footprint was affecting the
Yeah.
future of Earth. You know what I mean? So I believe that I do want to affect kids in a positive way and do want to help educate them. And I have some plans for that in the future with my business. But at the same time, I do feel like it's very beneficial to educate the adults and then allow them to take that back to their communities, their workplace, their families, those type of things.
Yeah. So for a family, what's some of like maybe like the first three things that you would say to start doing? Is that stuff that when you're on, I saw you recently, you're on K2,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So is that kind of the platform you use for those tips?
That is one. That is one community platform that I use to get that message out there.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So what would those tips be though? Like a family's like, oh man, like I just watched What the Health or some documentary. Like, how can I start to make that small little shift?
Yeah. I mean, for one thing, there's always like a structure in how I say it. So first I say, identify your purpose, your why.
Hmm.
And if you ask a lot of people, chronic and metabolic disease runs prevalent in their family. And many people will say, well, it's genetics. And I'll say, well, I challenge that thought and I say, more so lifestyle runs in your family history than genetics.
Hmm.
And you know what I mean? And the genetics do play a role, right? And we're predisposed to some things, but we have a lot more control over these preventative measure on these sicknesses and diseases than a lot of people even know just by what we put on our plate. So first I say, develop your purpose, So it's like, even if there's one sole leader in that home, it's the mom, it's the dad, maybe it's a child, um, develop, hey, you know what? Grandma and grandpa passed away of this, aunt and uncle have diabetes and this and this and that. Like, I've read that this lifestyle can help. Like, our family suffered from obesity. We are all overweight and I'm just sick and tired of it. So you guys, let's try something new. So it's like, develop that purpose,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think when you talk to people about developing purpose, it seems kind of daunting, but it's just literally your reason why. It's something that's deeply connected to you that'll help you sustain when things get tough, because willpower runs out. You know what I mean? Like, you can say, hey, I'm going to start this new lifestyle, and then next thing you know, you're back to the old lifestyle because it was too overwhelming, it was too stressful, and you really didn't have a deep purpose to why you were doing
Yeah.
it, right? Or deep understanding. Second is get educated. So there's lots of documentaries, there's lots of books, there's lots of good information out there, because I feel like people are really wanting individuals and families and people to know what's really going on. So just like you said, like How Not to Die, Dr. Michael Greger is amazing. He's one of the leaders in plant-based nutrition research. And I love all of his content. He has nutritionfacts.org, which is an amazing site when it comes to non-biased, very credible information. So get educated. Books. There's a book called Proteinaholic by Garth Davis. He's a pretty radical dude. He's a very outspoken but very intelligent. He's a medical doctor that wrote a book about debunking the myths around protein and how much we actually need. So that's a great resource. What the Health, Cowspiracy. A new one just came out, The Game Changers. That's an amazing. Have you watched that?
No, I've seen a lot of stuff about it though.
Okay,
Been
put
meaning
that
to.
on your list.
It's on the
What
list.
I like about that is because it touches on athletic performance,
Hmm.
and we're all athletes in some form, some facet. If we're working out, we're training, we're doing different things, whether we're competing or not. So it really touches on some of the science behind how we can improve athletic performance, recovery, how we can still be bigger, strong. Because I feel like that's a lot of the hiccup that people have, is like, oh, well, I can't be, fast or strong or big if I'm on plants. So that's a really good one, The Game Changers. So second was get educated. Third is practice. And that is, hey, let's do a meatless Monday, family. You know what I mean? Like, there's tons of resources for recipes out there. I do a recipe on KATU, the local news channel, lifestyle show. I do a recipe once a month on there. There's a lot of resources. So, experiment, explore. Then what if we, instead of using whole milk, we use an almond milk, or we use an oat milk, and we start getting off of dairy, which is known to be highly inflammatory, and then has many other dangerous things that could be associated with that. So it's like those type of things would be a good start for a family.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things you mentioned is when people say it runs in my genetics, and I remember from that book, How Not to Die, is like, yeah, well, your habits also run in your family as well, right? So what your parents did is what their parents did, and so you realize that you're passing that down. What I really like about plant-based too is just it's very mindful, and I want to kind of transition into that and how plant-based, but also something like meditation and maybe journaling. Like, what other mindfulness techniques or habits have you cultivated that play a role in your overall health?
Um, meditation, meditation and breath work was huge for me. I remember I had a buddy, I think you know him, Brandon,
Yeah.
Brandon Duncan, and it was years back, and we would talk, and he was talking to me about meditation, and he was like, yeah, I mean, one of the biggest benefits for me is it creates separation in your reaction. It creates space in your
Hmm.
reaction time. I remember thinking, I was like, wow, that's a really powerful tool, because at times I would struggle with, there's so much adversity in life, whether it's family stuff, it's business stuff, it's relationships, whatever. It's like, so I was like, wow, I really want to learn to create some space in my reaction, to be more thoughtful. I've dealt with anxiety. I had severe anxiety when I was coming out of high school, going into college, which was very difficult for me. And I didn't have the tools back then. And it was funny because looking back at it, all the things that I were doing were contributing to the anxiety. And I wondered why. Like, I was partying, I had crappy relationships, I wasn't sleeping enough, I was eating crappy foods. And it was like every single thing that I did pointed towards like more anxiety.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I didn't have any tools. I probably could have sought them out if I don't know what would change. I mean, everything happens for a reason, I believe. But like, I didn't have the tools. So meditation and breath work were really powerful for me. And I actually started meditating with the what is the app called? Um,
Headspace, Calm,
Headspace.
Insight. Yeah.
Headspace was the first one, and uh, that British guy and his soothing voice.
Oh yeah. British
He's
guys
good. I
all the
was like,
time.
he was so good, but he taught one of the biggest takeaways was like, don't run away from the negative feelings while trying to chase the good feelings, because
Mm.
that's not what meditation is about. And I realized that like meditation isn't something that you have to sit up, in that crossed position with your hands on your thighs humming and stuff. And I feel like it can be intimidating to a lot of people. And it's like meditation can happen in many different forms. So I started finding these different forms of meditation that brought a lot of peace and a lot of thoughtfulness, a lot of space in my reaction to me. So I started with 10 minutes a day. And now meditation just happens for me throughout the day. It happens in my car when sometimes the subconscious mind just takes over and there's just silence. And I
Hmm.
literally, the noise is shut out, and a 30-minute drive will go by, and it was just me alone with my thoughts. When I run, it's very meditative for me. It's almost a spiritual meditative thing for me. The water, running on the water, when I feel the clouds break and the sun comes through, it's a very peaceful, spiritual, meditative space for me. And then also, I'll get up and I'll do 5 to 10 more minutes in the morning, doing breath work, working on box breathing. So uh, breathing in through the nose and not, rather than the mouth, so trying to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and relaxation, and not always be in that heightened fight or flight state, which is the sympathetic nervous system. So doing the nose breathing has been really helpful for me, especially, anytime I get into a stressful situation. Maybe I'm getting ready to get on live TV, I'm getting ready to speak. It always kind of puts me in that rest, relaxation, and then also that alertness.
Yeah, totally. That's one of the first things I noticed when you mentioned like that space between when something happens, like you get that stimulus and then there's that, all right, executive function. Let's think about this and respond to it rather than react. Because I grew up, first thing that came out of my mouth was like, oh, I got it, no filter. I was like,
Right.
no, you need to meditate or, have some form of executive function that's like, all right, let's filter through these things. And for me, meditation was a huge thing. And so it sounds like it was something similar for you. Is
Yeah.
this something that, sorry, what were you saying?
No, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, is this something that you're passing on to your daughter or any other family members? It seems like you guys got a good little crew.
Yes, for sure. My wife is like, she's funny. She'll laugh at this, but she's just like on the go, and she's just like really boppity bibbity, like bouncy and energetic. So like, I think her mindfulness comes through like listening to peaceful things. So like
Mm,
music. She's a dancer and a choreographer. But my little one, my daughter, we definitely have worked on breath work. My wife and her in arts and crafts, they made like a little calmness thing. So it's basically like it was like water with food dye, and then it had glitter in it. So you shake it up, and then all the glitter disperses everywhere, right? And then as the glitter calms down. That's supposed to be like stimulate, like that's you calming down. So you shake it up, right? And you're in this heightened state, and then you watch it, all the glitter slowly calm down. And I've had her do breath work because she gets really angry, and she gets, and it's an emotional intelligence thing, right? Because
that's so cool.
even as adults, we lack it. And so I told her, I'm like, let's both sit down and do it so we both don't freak out, you know?
Yeah. No,
Um,
that's so cool and so powerful.
yeah,
Like emotional intelligence, the more I read and study up on that too, you realize how much of a game changer that is when it comes to being successful. IQ is great, skills are great, but
yeah,
you want to be a leader on your sports team, leader in your company, leader with just amongst friends, like being able to discern and have the awareness. And again, for me, meditation helped me get a lot of awareness of myself as well.
yeah. And I think it's really cool that now these apps and people and leaders and thought leaders, they're talking more about like the simplicity of meditation versus it seeming like this thing that's like way out in the distance, this Zen thing that you only can do if you're a monk or if you have this practice. But now it's like they're making it more accessible, and they're teaching other ways for people to do it, and people that thought that they maybe never could, and they're really getting some benefits from it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think overall, just from being plant-based or meditation or all these things that when I was growing up and maybe when you were growing up, it's like that just wasn't accessible, or it just was like, what are you, whoa, like, do you live in a van? And to your point, are you a monk? Are you a monk
Yeah,
on a mountaintop? And so I think it's really exciting. I think some way down the road, 50 years, maybe we'll look back and read history books, and it's like the pre-Renaissance mindfulness era. At least
yeah,
that's what I want to. That's what I want to hope for, at least.
that's awesome.
Um, how did so coming back to fatherhood, and we talked a little bit about this when I connected with you in Vancouver, but just the transition. I think, and it might happen at different times for you, but when you become a father and your idea of masculinity and kind of the representation of the kind of man that you want to be for her as well, how did that change for you over the course of your life and then over the course of fatherhood?
Yeah, there's a lot of stigmas out there around masculinity and what it means to be masculine, and that locker room talk and all these different things, and how it's okay for men to be very promiscuous, but then if a woman does it, she's a you know what, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like we grew up that way. It was just like, hey, like it was like, hey, how many women can you talk to, or get the phone number, do this, and it was like this thing that was like praised and looked at like it was like so great. But then we wonder why like a lot of us were suffering from like toxic relationships and stress and all these different things. um, so I will definitely say like I was affected by that toxic masculinity growing up, and I always cared what other people thought. And I was like, I was, I mean, popularity is such a strange word for me to use now. I don't enjoy that word, but like I was popular, but like I wasn't full inside.
Hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I was still insecure in many ways. And to me, like there's nothing masculine about that, but about presenting some exterior layer, wearing some mask, but on the inside you're really this, insecure person that cares about what other people think. Like that's the complete opposite of masculinity. And I think that's what toxic masculinity is. It's this like this energy that males exude that looks a certain way, but it lacks a lot of depth.
Yeah.
uh,
It's almost like
so
a
as
tree.
what's that?
I was going to say it's almost like a tree with a ton of leaves, but no roots.
Yeah, not planted, not grounded. There's no foundation, and what's missing is that foundational work. And that foundational work came for me through, so fitness was the catalyst to everything, all positive change in my life that happened several years ago. Fitness has been the catalyst for that, because it changed my mindset, it changed my work ethic, it naturally evolved my community, the people that I surrounded myself with, and then it also changed what I listened to, what I learned, the books that I read, the mentorship that I seeked. So through learning and creating an identity in myself and becoming firm in my values, so developing my core values of what I believe, what I stand for, it made me more firm and more confident in who I actually was. And because I knew that my values and who I was becoming actually served other people and served a purpose versus just serving myself, um, it helped me shake those crappy masculine, toxic masculine attributes that I had maybe grown up with, because I just knew who I was and I stopped caring what other people thought.
Yeah.
And I just continue to move in my values, my purpose, but knowing that my values, my purpose were not just self-serving, they served other people. It made me feel more confident in becoming the man that I was. And then having a little girl, it was just like, I'm hands-on. So like, I'm a very present father. So like, I braid my daughter's hair every day before we go to school. Like, to me, that's masculine. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like, hey, Amanda, like, tell my wife, like, you got to do her hair. Like, I don't know how to do that stuff. Or you got to take her to dance. Like, you got to do, it's like, no, I'm a dance dad. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a thing now. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's very intimate relationships that we can have with our kids, and it doesn't have to be like, because like, oh, you have a son, you know, you raise him up to be strong and play sports and don't cry about stuff. It's like, no, like, be sensitive, like, teach them emotional intelligence, get in tuned with the things that girls deal with, like with little girls growing up evolving to women deal with, right?
Yeah.
Get in tune with that now so it doesn't become a problem later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's super powerful. And for me, it's when you talk about toxic masculinity, it's like the front of security is like revealing a insecurity, and the front of like, I'm just gonna be me. Like, think about the most confident people in showbiz, like a Lady Gaga. Like, she knows who she is, and so she's able to be, you know, maybe she's changed her persona now, so it's not as good of an example, but
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I think it's really important. And for me, it's always through the lens of, whether it's meditation or mindfulness or mental health. That's what I try and cater this podcast to a little bit, where it's like, if I go to my girlfriend and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this, a while ago, that would have been really hard for me because I can't show that I'm not in control.
Right.
And I think the ability to say you're not okay, or to do something that doesn't seem like it is masculine, but feel really centered doing it,
Hmm.
in a way, is masculine, and is secure, because again, your roots grow deep and you can blow left to right with the wind.
Yeah.
Because and for me, that's where meditation helped me create that self-awareness. When you talk about core values, it's like, who am I? It's like, okay, I know that I'm in line with who I am, so
Uh-huh.
I can go and do these things, or be these things, or express these emotions, and
Yeah.
not feel insecure.
Yeah. And you're tapping into something really, really good. And it's something that I haven't mentioned, but it's vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it's like, toxic masculinity doesn't breed vulnerability. And it's like, there's a reason why there's an epidemic of mental health, and maybe we just speak to men right now, but it's just like, we suppress in things versus express.
Yeah.
Right? And that's almost like the definition of depression, right? And
Hmm.
it's not okay. It's not okay to express the way you feel, right? Or to tell someone that you're weak or you're not strong. And that was another thing. It's like, I was afraid to be vulnerable many times, but through, mentorship, friends who understand, learnings like Dr. Brene Brown, like, I love her stuff. The Power of Vulnerability. That's a book I definitely recommend. One of my good friends recommended to me. He's like, dude, don't read this unless you're ready to get real with yourself. That was like 6, 7 years ago. And I was like, I'm ready, man. I was like, I'll read it. So, but vulnerability is huge. And what people don't understand is like, it's a practice. Like it's a practice to become who you want to be. And I have a saying that says, through practice, you can become anything. And it's like people that are enlightened or maybe enriched or have like a heart full of a compassion and service, they didn't get that way overnight. There's some really, really kind people that maybe kind of came out the womb that way, but we all have to practice who we want to become. So it's like, just because you have a certain trajectory, you're not destined to be that person unless you continue to do those things that create that person. But if you want to change, you have to start practicing something different.
Yeah.
So things like vulnerability, developing core values, and then actually living in your core values, like being the man that you say you want to be when no one's watching. Like that's masculinity, right? And then being okay with talking about your wrongs, your faults, your mistakes, because you know that that's not who you want to be, and you're going to continue to practice who you want to become. Like
Yeah.
that's vulnerability. That's strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I had the analogy or the image of something that is in line, right? So like a handstand, or we stand on our legs, and as soon as you get out of that alignment, right, that causes stress. Stress is, good when we're someone trying to adapt to it from a strength training standpoint or trying to grow, but we get this anxiety, we get this stress, and it's because we're not in alignment with
Yes.
what we know that it is we're supposed to be doing.
Yes, you're exactly right. And it's those practices that bring us back in alignment,
Yeah.
right? And it's like even the best of the best get out of alignment, but we have tools to fall back on that we
Yeah.
can get back into practice and then get back in the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the analogy of like constantly auditing.
Yeah.
People are able to audit more often. So if I'm a professional baseball player and I hit, and I got a hitting coach who's watching my swing every single day, I might be able to avoid a slump. Versus if I'm just going in and taking whacks, I go on a 3 week slump, and then I'm like, oh, I watch some film, like, oh, my foot's not getting down.
Right.
I need to get that fixed. So
Right.
that's what these tools that we're talking about is with meditation or journaling or, you know, reading or having mentorships or groups. Like those are all things to help keep you in line.
Yeah. And self-awareness is huge.
Yeah, self-awareness,
Self-awareness
definitely.
to vulnerability and, you know, being aware of who you are, your constant, your state of mind, your state of heart, realizing if something needs attention, being able to implement tools, ask for help, course correct, troubleshoot, like all those different things, right?
Yeah,
A lot of times people hide and suppress those things, and then nothing gets better, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes.
yep, 100%.
Mhm.
Uh, so got a couple more minutes for I gotta let you go, but what's coming up, man? What are you super excited, pumped about? We got a month and a half left till 2020, so I'm sure you got some stuff cooked up for. You mentioned some of the business things, but if there's anything
Yeah.
else you're excited for.
Um, yeah, a couple of the business things is, and then I'll talk about some personal things. I feel like there's always so many things going on that like I don't have these like goals that are like out there. It's just like a flow of things just happening and kind of like checking them off and then continuing to work towards them and progress. But I'm relaunching Embrace Change, kind of doing a rebranding, a relaunching um, to kind of more showcase a plant-based lifestyle. And I want to engage more with different businesses, organizations, companies, corporations on education and teaching around a plant-based lifestyle and all things that encompass that, and like some of the things that we touched on. So the mindfulness. So it's like it's not just nutrition; it's like wellness.
Yeah,
I mean, um, myself and my business partner are launching a plant-based foods company, and we will be starting with a sauce line.
that's
So
cool.
we're trying to enhance the eating experience and then also create a platform to create some education around sustainability, plant-based nutrition, that type of thing. So those are two big dockets on the business side. On the family side, my wife and I want to continue to grow our family. So uh, that's a big goal of ours in the next year. Peyton is growing like a weed, and so continuing, and she's just like a tall little string bean. So continuing to continue to develop her, and she's a dancer. She's a big time dancer. So there's gonna be a lot of shows. I'll be in full dance dad mode, doing top buns and all those types of things.
Love
Uh,
it.
um, yeah, and then next year triathlon season, I'll be racing for speed. So I did an Ironman this year, and then next year I'm going to dial it back and really focus on speed and tap into some different energy systems. So I'll have some big races next year.
Cool. That's exciting. Any particular places that you're excited to go to?
I have nothing on the docket because I haven't chosen my A race yet, but the family and I will get out somewhere for fun for one of my races. And then here at home, I'm doing a bunch of stuff with Lululemon. As you know, I'm an ambassador like yourself. And so we have our weekly runs, our run club. We run the city Tuesday nights at 5:15. And then my men's scouting report. So we plan on continuing to curate space for men to come and be vulnerable and release themselves from the shackles of toxic masculinity and sweat, grow, connect. So there'll be some cool stuff happening with that.
Cool. I love that. Um, Super excited with the Lululemon stuff too.
Yeah.
That's it's cool how they're able to get so many people to connect and how they've really been able to grow the men's brand.
They do a great job. They invest in us and then give us a platform and the tools to go out there and share our message better.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful to be a part of their team.
Cool. One last question. So you mentioned you were a chef for 10 years, and I feel like this one is appropriate. So if you could cook a meal for anyone, past, present, future, even, who would you cook it for? And then you got to sit down with that person and have a conversation. I'll give you 3 people, so maybe you can mix it up. But 3 people, you're cooking a dinner for 4.
I'm going to say one. I'm going to say Barack Obama.
Cool.
I feel like he's a man of values. And I feel like he is a progressive thinker, and I feel like he has the ability to impact change, positive change amongst a large amount of people. So I'd like to give him a taste of the good life, you know. I would say my grandpa, and he's deceased. And my grandpa had health problems and deceased seemingly early age, and I think he could have benefited from this because he was into health, but I think this type of health could have served him in a great way. And I'd love to get to know him more. And then he said something to me before he passed, and he said he felt like I was meant to spread the word. He was a pastor, and I'm spiritual as well. But he said he felt like I was meant to preach the word. And to me, I find myself as a messenger of good health. So to preach so I think I am fulfilling what his wish was for myself in that way. So that's 2. I got one more. Let's say Brene Brown.
Okay, I was gonna tease that one out. That would be sweet.
She's amazing, and she's from Texas. And I know she's dealt with like body image issues and weight stuff. And I'd love to inform those Southern folks about the good life. And just, you know, and then cook them some real good food so they can understand that it still tastes good.
Yeah, no, I love that. It'd be a wise table, and you'd be feeding them the good life. So cool, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed this. Like you mentioned enriching, and like I felt like this was an enriching conversation. I love having these conversations, people like you on, because I know myself and the listeners are like, man, I feel uplifted. I feel full after these. So really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, man. And thank you so much for having me, man. I love what you're doing with Down Dog Athletics. And did I say it right?
Yeah, totally. Real quick too, where can people find you on social media? And you'll have the new website.
So it's embracechange.me. And then social media, it's my full name, Rajiv Harry, and then underscore. And yeah, and my website, the new website will be launching in the next couple of weeks, and it'll have a lot of great content for you and people to get in touch and to learn some new things. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to collaborating on some more stuff with you in the future, man.
Definitely. Cool. Appreciate you, man. Take it easy. Before I let you guys go, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you could, be sure to tag Rajiv and I on social media. Let us know that you're listening to this podcast. And if you got something out of it, leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Helps us grow the podcast and helps me reach out to other people and get really cool people like Rajiv on. They can be all over the world, and it's so cool because we're able to just have a Zoom call like I did with Rajiv, and we're able to have these powerful conversations for people to learn from. Be sure to check out Rajiv on social media and embracechange.com. And other than that, hope you guys all have an awesome rest of your week. Take it easy and catch you next time on the Down Dog Athletics Podcast.